The flash of cameras hit Luna Davies like a tidal wave the moment she stepped out of the sleek black car, and she knew immediately that this was a terrible mistake. "Miss Davies, is it true you're engaged to Lord Draconis? How long have you been seeing the Vampire King? Does your family approve of the union?" Luna's heart hammered against her ribs as she froze on the marble steps leading into the sprawling mansion. She'd only been trying to help. 20 minutes ago, she'd been leaving her shift at the hospital where she worked as a trauma nurse, cutting through the alley behind the building to reach the parking garage. That's when she'd seen him, a figure surrounded by a swarm of reporters and photographers, his white hair gleaming under the streetlights, his pale skin almost luminous in the darkness. She'd recognized him instantly. Everyone knew Lord Draconis Valentius, the Vampire King who ruled the immortal population with an iron fist wrapped in velvet. He'd been negotiating the new vampire-human treaty for months, appearing on every news channel, his striking features and commanding presence impossible to forget. The vampires had revealed themselves to humanity 5 years ago, and the world was still adjusting to the reality of immortal beings living among them. But in that alley, he'd looked cornered, trapped. The reporters had been shouting invasive questions about his personal life, about whether he'd ever take a human bride, about vampire breeding customs that made Luna's stomach turn with their intrusiveness. She'd seen something flash across his aristocratic features. Not fear, never fear, but something close to exhaustion, frustration. So she'd done something monumentally stupid. She'd walked right up to him, grabbed his hand, and said loud enough for the cameras to hear, "There you are, darling. I've been looking everywhere for you." The shock on his face had been priceless. His eyes, a deep crimson that seemed to glow in the dim light, had locked onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. For a heartbeat, she'd thought he might expose her lie, might push her away, or worse. Vampires were notoriously proud creatures, and she'd just inserted herself into the life of their king without permission. Instead, his lips had curved into the smallest smile, and his long fingers had wrapped around hers with surprising gentleness. "Forgive me, my love. The press was more persistent than I anticipated." And just like that, they'd been engaged. The reporters had exploded with questions, following them as Lord Draconis had guided her smoothly to his waiting car. Now here she stood, at what she assumed was his residence, with cameras still flashing and her entire life spiraling out of control. A cool hand pressed against the small of her back, and she shivered at the contact. Lord Draconis leaned down, his lips brushing her ear as he whispered, "Play along just a bit longer. Once we're inside, we can discuss this properly." His voice was like aged whiskey and silk, carrying the faint accent of someone who'd lived through centuries. Luna nodded mutely, letting him guide her up the remaining steps and through massive oak doors that closed with a resonant thud, finally cutting off the chaos outside. The silence that followed was deafening. Luna pulled away from him, her professional composure crumbling as the reality of what she'd done crashed over her. "Oh my God! Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I just saw you surrounded and you looked so—" She stopped herself, heat flooding her cheeks. "I thought I was helping." Lord Draconis stood perfectly still, watching her with those unsettling crimson eyes. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with the kind of presence that made the cavernous entrance hall seem small. His white hair fell past his shoulders in a sleek curtain, and he wore a black suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. Everything about him screamed power, danger, old-world nobility. "You thought the Vampire King needed rescuing?" There was no mockery in his tone, only genuine curiosity. "I thought you looked like someone who was tired of being harassed," Luna shot back, some of her usual fire returning. She dealt with difficult situations daily at the hospital. She could handle this. "Look, I'll just go back out there and tell them I lied, that I'm nobody, some crazy person who—" "No!" The single word stopped her cold. Lord Draconis moved closer, and Luna forced herself not to step back. She'd grown up in the new world where vampires were known entities, had even treated a few in the emergency room. She knew they weren't monsters, weren't the creatures from old horror films. But standing this close to one of the oldest and most powerful of their kind made her very aware of her own mortality. "The damage is done," he continued, his gaze never leaving hers. "The moment you claimed to be my intended, every news outlet in the country picked up the story. If you recant now, they'll tear you apart trying to discover why. They'll dig into your life, your family, your past. You'll know no peace." Luna's stomach dropped. "So what are you suggesting?" "That we maintain the fiction. For a time." He gestured to a doorway leading deeper into the mansion. "Come. We should discuss the terms properly." She knew she should refuse, should insist on fixing this disaster immediately. But the logical part of her brain, the part that had gotten her through nursing school and countless life or death situations, recognized the truth in his words. The media frenzy would be catastrophic if she backed out now. So she followed the Vampire King into his home, wondering how a simple act of misguided kindness had turned her entire world upside down. The room he led her to was a study straight out of a Gothic novel, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace with a mantel carved from black marble, furniture that looked antique and priceless. Lord Draconis gestured for her to sit in a leather chair before taking a seat across from her, his movements fluid and precise. "Tell me your name," he said. "Your real name." "Luna Davies. I'm a nurse at St. Michael's Hospital." She tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear, suddenly very aware of her rumpled scrubs and sensible shoes. "I work in trauma." "A healer." Something flickered in his expression. Approval, maybe. "Noble work." "It's just a job." She didn't know why she felt defensive. "Look, Lord Draconis. Draconis. Just Draconis when we're in private." He leaned back in his chair, studying her with unnerving focus. "If we're to convince the world we're engaged, some familiarity is necessary." Right, because this was happening. Luna took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. "Okay, so what exactly are you proposing?" "A temporary arrangement. You pose as my fiancée for the duration of the treaty negotiations, perhaps 3 months. You'll attend necessary public functions with me. Maintain the appearance of a relationship. In exchange, I'll compensate you generously for your time and any inconvenience." "I don't want your money." His eyebrows rose slightly. "No? Then what do you want, Luna Davies?" She hadn't thought that far ahead. Her brain scrambled for something, anything that would make this insane situation feel more balanced. "The vampire blood research program at the hospital. We've been trying to get funding for a year to study the healing properties of vampire blood for human medical applications. If you could help with that." Now, he definitely looked impressed. "You're negotiating for your hospital rather than yourself. Interesting." He inclined his head. "Done. I'll have my people contact the hospital board tomorrow. Anything else?" "I want out the moment the 3 months are up. Clean break, no strings, no complications." "Agreed." He rose smoothly, extending one pale hand. "Do we have an accord?" Luna stared at his hand, knowing that shaking it would seal her fate. 3 months. She could survive 3 months of pretending to be engaged to a vampire king. It wasn't like she had much of a personal life to disrupt anyway. Her last relationship had ended badly 2 years ago, and she'd thrown herself into work ever since. She gripped his hand, feeling the coolness of his skin against hers. His fingers closed around hers with carefully controlled strength, and for a moment, their eyes locked. Something passed between them, electric and unexpected, making her breath catch. Draconis released her hand quickly, as if he'd felt it too. "You'll need to move in here. The press will expect it." "Move in? Here?" Luna looked around the opulent study, trying to imagine living in a place like this. "I have an apartment, a life, which you can return to in 3 months, but for now, if this is to be believable, we must live as an engaged couple would." He moved to a side table, pouring amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. "I have more than enough space, and you'll have your own quarters. I'll arrange for your belongings to be collected tomorrow." He offered her one of the glasses, and Luna took it automatically, the rich scent of expensive bourbon filling her nostrils. She took a sip, letting the warmth steady her nerves. "This is insane." "Perhaps, but you began this particular dance, Luna Davies. I'm merely suggesting we finish it properly." Draconis returned to his seat, his crimson gaze thoughtful. "Tell me, what made you intervene tonight?" "The truth." Luna considered lying, but those ancient eyes seemed to see through everything. "You looked alone, surrounded by all those people, all that noise, but completely alone." I know what that feels like. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the aristocratic mask. You're dangerously perceptive. Occupational hazard. You learn to read people quickly in the ER. She took another sip of bourbon. So what do we do now? Now, you stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll need to make a formal announcement, coordinate our stories. The press will want details how we met, when I proposed, all the romantic particulars humans seem to crave. His lip curled slightly at the word romantic, and Luna felt a flicker of amusement despite the situation. Not a fan of romance, I take it? I've lived for 8 centuries, Miss Davies. I've seen romance bloom and wither more times than I can count. It's a pleasant fiction, nothing more. That's incredibly sad, Luna said before she could stop herself. Draconis' eyes snapped to hers, sharp and assessing. You believe in such things? True love, soulmates, eternal devotion? I believe in connection, in people finding each other and choosing to stay, even when it's difficult. She set her glass down. But I'm not naive. I know most relationships end. I just think the trying matters. How remarkably human of you. But there was no derision in his tone, only something that might have been curiosity. A knock at the door interrupted them. A woman entered, also pale-skinned and white-haired, her features sharp and elegant. She wore a tailored suit and carried herself with the same regal bearing as Draconis. My lord, the press is still gathered outside. They're requesting a statement. Her eyes slid to Luna, assessment and suspicion clear in her gaze. Thank you, Isolde. Please prepare the East Wing guest suite for Miss Davies. She'll be staying with us for the foreseeable future. Draconis stood. Luna, this is Lady Isolde Corvinus, my second-in-command and chief advisor. Charmed, Isolde said, though her tone suggested otherwise. My lord, might I speak with you privately? Anything you wish to say can be said in front of my fiancée. The word rolled off his tongue smoothly, but Luna saw Isolde's eyes flash with surprise. You're actually going through with this charade? It's no charade. Miss Davies has agreed to help me navigate the rather tiresome social expectations surrounding the treaty negotiations. In return, I'm providing certain considerations. This is highly irregular, my lord. The council will have questions. Your enemies will see it as weakness, a vampire king taking a human bride before the treaty is even finalized. Then let them question. Let them see it as they will. Draconis' voice hardened, taking on a quality that made Luna's skin prickle. I am king. I need explain myself to no one. Isolde bowed her head, though Luna caught the flash of concern in her eyes. As you wish, I'll prepare the suite. After she left, Luna turned to Draconis. She's right, isn't she? This could cause you problems. Isolde worries excessively. It's her nature. He moved to the window, gazing out at the darkness. Besides, a human fiancé might actually help the treaty negotiations. It shows I'm willing to bridge our two worlds, to embrace unity. Is that why you agreed to this? Political advantage? He glanced back at her, something unreadable in his ancient eyes. Oh, I agreed because you intervened when you didn't have to. Because you saw me as something other than a king or a vampire. You saw someone who needed help, and you acted. That kind of instinct is rare, worth protecting. The sincerity in his voice caught Luna off guard. I'm starting to think you're not quite the cold, aloof vampire king the media portrays. Don't be so certain. I've done terrible things in my long life, Miss Davies. I've killed, conquered, ruled with an iron fist when necessary. The monster exists beneath this civilized veneer. We all have darkness in us. It's what we choose to do with it that matters. Luna stood, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried her through the last hour was fading fast. I should probably get some rest. It's been a very strange night. Draconis moved to the door, opening it with old-world courtesy. I'll show you to your rooms. The east wing was even more lavish than the study. Her suite consisted of a bedroom larger than her entire apartment, a sitting room with French doors opening onto a balcony, and a bathroom with a tub that could double as a swimming pool. Everything was decorated in rich jewel tones, deep emeralds and sapphires, cream and gold accents. It was beautiful and overwhelming in equal measure. Isolde will have clothes brought for you tomorrow, along with your personal belongings, Draconis said from the doorway. If you need anything during the night, there's a bell pull by the bed. Someone will attend to you. I'm not used to being attended to. Luna ran her fingers over the silk bedspread. This is all very much? That's one word for it. She turned to face him. Draconis, are you sure about this? Really sure? Because once we go public with a formal announcement, there's no going back without serious consequences. He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. I'm certain. Are you? Luna thought about her quiet, predictable life. Her studio apartment, her rotating hospital shifts, her non-existent social calendar. She thought about the research program that could save lives, about the adventure of living in a world so completely different from her own, even if only for 3 months. I'm certain, she said. Then sleep well, Luna Davies. Tomorrow, we begin our performance. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Luna stood in the center of the opulent room, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. She pulled out her phone, seeing dozens of missed calls and texts from friends and coworkers who'd seen the news. She'd have to deal with those tomorrow. Tonight, she'd just try to process the fact that she was now fake engaged to the Vampire King. Sleep didn't come easily. Luna tossed and turned in the enormous bed, her mind racing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Draconis' face, those crimson eyes, that slight smile when she'd first grabbed his hand. There was something magnetic about him, something that went beyond his obvious physical beauty or his power. He'd lived for 800 years, had seen empires rise and fall, and yet he'd looked so trapped in that alley. She finally drifted off near dawn, only to be awakened a few hours later by a soft knock on the door. A young woman entered human, Luna noted with some relief, carrying a tray laden with breakfast. Good morning, Miss Davies. I'm Marie, one of the household staff. Lord Draconis asked me to bring you breakfast and let you know he'd like to meet with you at 11 to discuss today's press conference. Press conference? Right? Luna sat up, accepting the tray. Coffee, fresh fruit, pastries that looked homemade. Thank you, Marie. There are clothes in the wardrobe Lady Isolde had them sent over first thing this morning. She guessed at your size. Marie moved to open the curtains, letting in streams of sunlight. If you need anything else, just ring. After Marie left, Luna discovered that Isolde's guess had been spot on. The wardrobe now held an array of outfits, ranging from casual to formal, all in her size, all designer labels that made her wince. She selected a simple but elegant dress in deep blue, figuring she should look the part of a vampire king's fiancée. The face staring back at her from the bathroom mirror looked the same as always: brown eyes, dark hair that never quite cooperated, features her mother had always called interesting rather than beautiful. She wondered what the world would think when they saw her next to Draconis. The Vampire King could have anyone, immortal or human. Why would he choose an ordinary nurse? Because you chose him first, a voice in her head reminded her. You walked right up to him and claimed him. The thought made her smile as she applied minimal makeup and tried to tame her hair into something presentable. She could do this. She'd faced down gang members in the ER, had held people's lives in her hands during trauma surgeries. She could handle a few months of pretending to be in love. At exactly 11, she made her way back to the study, following the path she'd memorized from the night before. Draconis was already there, along with Isolde and 2 other vampires she didn't recognize. They all turned when she entered, and Luna fought the urge to squirm under their collective scrutiny. Luna, good morning. Draconis gestured for her to join him. These are Lord Kieran Nightshade and Lady Seraphina Ashenheart, members of my inner council. We're coordinating the announcement strategy. Pleasure to meet you. Luna shook their hands, noting the coolness of their skin, the way they moved with that same preternatural grace. Kieran was regarding her with open skepticism. My lord, with all respect, are we certain this is wise? The human could be a liability. We know nothing about her background, her allegiances. I have no allegiances except to my patients, Luna interrupted, meeting his gaze steadily. And I'm not interested in vampire politics or power plays. This is a temporary arrangement that benefits both of us, nothing more. Spirited. Seraphina's lips curved in what might have been approval. I like her, Draconis. She has fire. Indeed. Draconis moved to stand beside Luna, and she caught the faint scent of him, something dark and spicy, like cedar and winter nights. Now, we need our story straight. The press will want every detail. They spent the next 2 hours constructing an elaborate fiction. They'd met 6 months ago when Luna had treated a vampire patient at the hospital. Draconis had been impressed by her skill and compassion, had arranged to see her again. They'd kept the relationship quiet, not wanting to deal with media scrutiny until the treaty was closer to completion. He'd proposed 3 weeks ago during a private dinner. Luna tried to memorize every detail, knowing one slip could unravel the entire charade. Draconis was patient, answering her questions, adjusting the story when she pointed out inconsistencies. She found herself appreciating his quick mind, the way he thought through every angle. "What about the ring?" Serafina asked. "An engagement requires a ring." Draconis's expression flickered the first time Luna had seen him look uncertain. "I hadn't considered that. I have something that might work." Isolde left the room, returning moments later with a velvet box. Inside was a ring that made Luna's breath catch, a deep red ruby surrounded by diamonds, set in what looked like platinum. It was old, beautiful, and clearly priceless. "This was your mother's," Isolde said quietly to Draconis. "I thought perhaps—" "It's perfect." Draconis took the ring from the box, then turned to Luna. "May I?" Luna extended her left hand, trying to ignore the way her heart was racing. This was just part of the act, just another detail to make the story believable. But when Draconis slid the ring onto her finger, his cool fingers lingering against her skin, it felt like something more. The ruby caught the light, casting red shadows across her hand. It fit perfectly. "My mother would have liked you," Draconis said softly, so only Luna could hear. "She always said I needed someone who wasn't afraid to speak her mind." Before Luna could respond, Kieran cleared his throat. "The press conference is scheduled for 3 o'clock. That gives us 4 hours to prepare. Miss Davies, you'll need media training." "I'll handle that personally," Draconis interrupted. "The rest of you make sure security is tight. I don't want any surprises." The other vampires filed out, leaving Luna alone with Draconis once more. He poured them both water from a crystal pitcher, and Luna noticed he drank it as easily as she did. Somehow she'd expected vampires not to consume anything but blood. "We eat and drink like humans," he said, catching her look. "Blood is a necessity, but we can enjoy other sustenance as well. It's one of many misconceptions your kind has about mine." "I have a lot to learn, don't I?" Luna sipped her water. "About vampire culture, customs, all of it. You'll pick it up quickly. You're intelligent, adaptable." He leaned against the desk studying her. "But you should know what you're walking into. The vampire world is not kind, Luna. We have our own prejudices, our own politics. Many will see you as an outsider, an interloper. Some may even see you as prey." A chill ran down her spine. "Are you trying to scare me?" "I'm trying to prepare you. I won't let anyone harm you, you have my word on that. But the next 3 months won't be easy." His eyes held hers. "If you want to back out, now is the time." Luna looked down at the ring on her finger, feeling its weight. She could walk away, go back to her normal life, her safe existence. But something in her rebelled at the thought. Maybe it was pride or stubbornness, or the simple fact that she'd never backed down from a challenge in her life. "I'm not going anywhere," she said firmly. "We have a deal. I intend to honor it." Draconis's smile was slow and genuine, transforming his austere features into something breathtaking. "Then let's give them a show they won't forget." The press conference was held in a grand ballroom that had been converted into a media center. Cameras lined the walls, reporters filled every available seat, and the energy in the room was electric. Luna stood backstage with Draconis, her hand clasped in his, trying to calm her racing heart. "Remember," he murmured, "we're in love. Deliriously, unexpectedly in love. Let them see it in how you look at me, how you stand beside me. I'm a nurse, not an actress. You're a woman who put herself between me and a mob of reporters. I think you can manage this." He squeezed her hand gently. "Ready?" No, not even close. But Luna nodded anyway, and together they walked out into the blinding lights. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, the noise building to a crescendo. Draconis led her to a podium, his arms sliding around her waist in a gesture that looked completely natural. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice carrying easily over the crowd. "I know there's been much speculation about my personal life, and I wanted to address it directly. Luna and I met several months ago, and what began as a chance encounter became something neither of us anticipated. She has challenged me, surprised me, and shown me that the barriers between our worlds are not as insurmountable as I once believed. He turned to look at Luna, and the warmth in his eyes was so convincing that for a moment she almost believed it herself. She's agreed to be my wife, and I am honored beyond measure. Luna felt the weight of thousands of eyes on her, cameras capturing every micro-expression. She made herself smile, made herself lean into Draconis as if he were her anchor in the storm. "I know this is unconventional," she said, her voice steadier than she'd expected. "A human and a vampire. But love doesn't follow rules or expectations. Draconis saw past my mortality, and I saw past his immortality, and what we found was simply each other." The words felt both true and false on her tongue. They barely knew each other, and yet there was something between them, some connection that had sparked the moment she'd taken his hand in that alley. The questions came rapid fire after that. When was the wedding? Would she become a vampire? Did her family approve? How did he propose? Luna and Draconis fielded them smoothly, their fabricated story rolling out with practiced ease. Finally, one reporter asked, "Lord Draconis, your enemies have claimed you're incapable of human emotion, that vampires are too removed from humanity to truly care for mortals. What do you say to that?" Draconis's expression hardened. "I say they're wrong." He turned to Luna, and suddenly his hand was cupping her cheek, his thumb brushing along her jawline. "I say that in 8 centuries, I've never met anyone quite like Luna Davies. I say that she walked into my life without fear or agenda, and she reminded me what it means to feel." Then he kissed her. It wasn't part of the plan. They discussed maintaining physical distance, perhaps a handhold or a brief embrace. But Draconis's lips were on hers, cool and firm, and Luna's entire world narrowed to that single point of contact. The kiss was gentle, almost chaste, but there was something beneath it, a current of electricity, of possibility. Luna's hand came up instinctively to rest against his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heart. Yes, vampires had hearts that beat, though slower than human ones. When he pulled back, his eyes held a question she couldn't quite read. The room had erupted in chaos, cameras flashing wildly, reporters shouting new questions. But Luna could only stare at Draconis, trying to understand what had just happened. "I think that answers that," he said smoothly to the reporters, though his gaze never left Luna's face. The rest of the press conference passed in a blur. Eventually, Draconis guided her off the stage and back through the mansion's private corridors. Neither of them spoke until they were safely in his study, the door closed against the world. "That wasn't planned," Luna said, her fingers unconsciously touching her lips. "No, it wasn't." Draconis moved to pour himself a drink, something darker than bourbon, and Luna wondered if it was blood. But it was necessary. They needed to believe we're truly engaged. "Right? Of course. For the story." Luna tried to ignore the strange disappointment curling in her stomach. It was convincing. "Luna." He stopped, shaking his head. "You did well today, very well. I know this isn't easy." "Neither is ruling a vampire kingdom, I imagine." She managed to smile. "We're both doing difficult things." A knock interrupted them, and Isolde entered without waiting for permission. "My lord, the council has called an emergency session. They want to discuss the engagement immediately." Draconis's jaw tightened. "Of course they do. Tell them I'll be there within the hour." After Isolde left, he turned to Luna. "I'm afraid duty calls. Will you be all right here?" "I'm not a porcelain doll. I'll be fine." She waved him toward the door. "Go deal with your council. I'll probably just explore a bit, maybe read. The library is on the 2nd floor, West Wing. Feel free to make yourself at home." He paused at the door. "And Luna, thank you. For today, for all of this. I know I haven't made it easy." "Nothing worth doing is ever easy," she replied. After he left, Luna wandered the mansion, trying to process everything that had happened. The library turned out to be spectacular 3 stories of books, with rolling ladders and comfortable reading nooks. She could happily lose herself here for days. She was examining a first edition of Dracula with wry amusement when a voice behind her said, "Ironic choice." Luna turned to find Serafina leaning against a bookshelf, her white hair cascading over one shoulder. The vampire wore leather pants and a silk blouse, looking both elegant and dangerous. I thought it might be educational, Luna said, replacing the book. Learn what humans got wrong about vampires. Almost everything as it happens. Stoker was a dramatic fool. Serafina moved closer, her movements predatory and graceful. I wanted to speak with you privately, human to vampire. May I be frank? Please. Draconis is more vulnerable than he appears. 8 centuries of life have given him power, yes, but also wounds. He lost his human family to plague, his vampire mate to war, his closest friend to betrayal. He's learned not to let people close. Serafina's red eyes pinned Luna in place, which is why today surprised me. That kiss wasn't just for show. Luna's heart skipped. I think you're reading too much into, I've known him for 400 years. I know when he's pretending, and I know when something real slips through his control. Serafina tilted her head. The question is, do you? This is temporary, Luna said firmly, though she wasn't sure if she was trying to convince Serafina or herself. 3 months. Then we both go back to our lives. If you say so. Serafina's smile was knowing. But I'd be careful if I were you, Luna Davies. Falling for a vampire king is dangerous in more ways than one. Our world has teeth, and we don't let go of what we claim as ours. She left as silently as she'd arrived, leaving Luna alone with her whirling thoughts. That kiss had been just for show. Draconis had been playing a part, convincing the media of their relationship. There was nothing real about it. So why could she still feel the coolness of his lips against hers? Luna threw herself into a book, trying to distract herself. She was still reading when darkness fell, and Marie appeared with dinner on a tray. Lord Draconis is still with the council, miss. He asked me to make sure you ate. Thank you, Marie. Luna accepted the tray, realizing she was actually hungry. Does he do this often? Meet with the council, I mean? More often lately, what with the treaty negotiations. There's a lot of opposition among the old families. They don't like change. Marie hesitated, then added quietly, but they respect him. Even when they disagree, they respect him. He's a good king. After Marie left, Luna ate her dinner and continued reading, curled up in a leather armchair. She must have dozed off because the next thing she knew, strong arms were lifting her carefully. Draconis? She blinked up at him groggily. You fell asleep in the library. I'm taking you to your room. His voice was soft, almost tender. Luna knew she should protest, should insist she could walk, but she was still half asleep and his arms felt secure around her. She let her head rest against his shoulder, breathing in his scent. How did the council meeting go? She murmured. As expected. Half of them think I'm brilliant for taking a human fiancé at this crucial time, showing unity between our peoples. The other half think I've lost my mind. He navigated the hallways easily despite carrying her. But they'll fall in line. They always do. Must be lonely, being king. She felt rather than saw his smile. You're very perceptive when you're half asleep. He laid her gently on her bed, pulling the covers up over her. Luna caught his hand before he could leave. That kiss today? Yes? Was it really just for the cameras? In the dim light, his eyes glowed faintly red. Does it matter? I don't know. Maybe. She was too tired to guard her words. I just want to know what's real and what's pretend. Draconis was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned down and pressed a kiss to her forehead, achingly gentle. Sleep, Luna. We can sort through reality and fiction tomorrow. But as he left, Luna wondered if 3 months would be enough time to untangle the truth from the lies, or if she even wanted to anymore. The next 2 weeks fell into a strange rhythm. Luna's belongings arrived from her apartment, though she barely needed them given the wardrobe that kept mysteriously expanding. She took a leave of absence from the hospital, her supervisor surprisingly understanding when she explained the situation. The research funding had already been approved and transferred, which helped ease Luna's guilt about abandoning her patients. During the days, she and Draconis maintained their public relationship. They attended treaty negotiations together, where Luna sat quietly and observed the complex dance of vampire politics. She accompanied him to charity galas, art exhibitions, and formal dinners, where she learned to navigate conversations with centuries-old vampires who viewed her with everything from curiosity to contempt. Through it all, Draconis remained at her side, protective and attentive. In public, he touched her constantly, a hand at her back, fingers intertwined with hers, his arm around her waist. He introduced her to important figures with genuine pride in his voice, defended her when others questioned her presence, and treated her like she truly was his intended bride. In private, he kept his distance. They had meals together, discussed their public schedule, and sometimes read in companionable silence in the library. But the intimacy from that first night, when he'd carried her to bed, didn't repeat itself. It was as if they'd both silently agreed to maintain the boundary between performance and reality. Luna told herself she was fine with that arrangement. This was temporary, after all. Getting emotionally involved would only complicate things. Then came the night of the Blood Moon Gala. It was the vampire social event of the season, held in an ancient castle that had been transported stone by stone from Europe and rebuilt outside the city. Every important vampire in the country would attend, along with select human dignitaries. Luna's attendance as Draconis' fiancée was mandatory. Isolde had outdone herself with the dress, a gown of deep crimson silk that hugged Luna's curves before flowing into a dramatic train. The neckline was modest but elegant, and the color made her skin glow. Marie had helped with her hair, pinning it up in an intricate style that left her neck bare. When Luna descended the stairs to meet Draconis, she found him waiting in formal vampire attire, black suit with subtle silver embroidery, a cape that somehow didn't look ridiculous on him, his white hair pulled back to reveal his aristocratic features. He looked up as she approached, and something flashed in his crimson eyes. Heat. Want. Gone so quickly, Luna might have imagined it. "You look stunning," he said, offering his arm. "You clean up pretty well yourself." She took his arm, trying to ignore the electricity that sparked between them at the contact. The drive to the castle took an hour, giving them time to go over the guest list one more time. Luna had gotten better at remembering names and faces, at understanding the complex web of alliances and rivalries that defined vampire society. She knew which families supported Draconis, which ones tolerated him, and which ones would happily see him fall. "The Mordecai clan will be there tonight," Draconis said quietly. "Lord Victor Mordecai has opposed my rule for centuries. He'll likely use this opportunity to test you, to see if you're a weakness he can exploit. What do you want me to do?" "Be yourself. You've handled everything else with grace and intelligence. I trust you." His hand covered hers where it rested on his arm. "But stay close to me. Victor is old and dangerous, and he has no compunction about harming humans." The warning sent a shiver through her, but Luna nodded. She'd known this world was dangerous when she agreed to enter it. The castle was breathtaking, all Gothic spires in ancient stone, lit by thousands of candles and torches. Vampires in elegant formal wear filled the grand ballroom, their pale skin and light hair creating an otherworldly sea of beauty. Luna felt the weight of their attention as she entered on Draconis' arm, knew they were all assessing her, judging her. "Lord Draconis, how delightful to see you." The voice was smooth as oil, and Luna turned to see a vampire approaching them. He was tall and imposing, with silver-white hair and eyes that gleamed like polished coins. Power radiated from him in waves. "Victor." Draconis' tone was carefully neutral. "Allow me to introduce my fiancée, Luna Davies. Luna, this is Lord Victor Mordecai." "A human bride." Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes as he took Luna's hand, raising it to his lips in an old-fashioned gesture. His lips were ice-cold against her skin. "How very progressive of you, Draconis. Tell me, Miss Davies, are you aware of what you're agreeing to? The transformation process is excruciating, and many humans don't survive it." "I'm a trauma nurse," Luna replied calmly, extracting her hand from his grip. "I'm well aware of the risks, but who said anything about transformation?" Victor's eyebrows rose. "You intend to remain human? But then the marriage would be a union of equals, regardless of mortality," Draconis interrupted smoothly. "Luna and I have discussed all options. Our choices are our own." "Of course. Forgive my presumption." Victor's gaze slid between them, calculating. "I simply worry for you, old friend. Humans are so very fragile. It would be tragic if something were to happen to your lovely bride before the wedding." The threat was unmistakable, and Luna felt Draconis tense beside her. But before he could respond, she stepped forward, meeting Victor's ancient eyes without flinching. I may be mortal, Lord Mordecai, but I'm not helpless, and I'm under the protection of the Vampire King. Anyone who threatens me threatens him. I imagine that would be a very unwise move. For a moment, the ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Then Victor laughed, the sound cold and sharp. Spirit, I see why you like her, Draconis. Very well, Miss Davies. I look forward to seeing how long that spirit survives our world. He melted back into the crowd, leaving Luna's heart pounding. Draconis pulled her close, his lips brushing her ear. That was either very brave or very foolish. Can't it be both? She tried for levity, though her hands were shaking. Come, let's dance. It will give us a reprieve from the politics. The ballroom floor was already filled with couples, vampires moving with inhuman grace to the orchestral music. Draconis led Luna into the dance, one hand at her waist, the other clasping hers. After weeks of public appearances, they'd developed an easy synchronicity, and Luna found herself relaxing into the familiar pattern. You handled Victor well, Draconis said as they moved across the floor. Most humans would have cowered. I deal with angry, dangerous people in the ER all the time. Vampires aren't that different. She looked up at him. But he wasn't bluffing, was he, about being a threat? No. Victor has wanted my throne for 2 centuries. He sees you as a vulnerability, a mortal attachment that weakens me. Draconis' grip tightened slightly. Which is why I need you to be careful. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't accept drinks from anyone but me or my trusted people. And if you feel threatened, find me immediately. You're really worried. It wasn't a question. I'm protective of what's mine. The words came out fierce, possessive, and something in Luna's chest tightened. Even if this engagement is temporary, while you wear my ring, you're under my protection. I take that seriously. The song ended, but they remained on the dance floor as another began. Luna was hyper-aware of Draconis' hand on her waist, of the coolness of his skin through the thin fabric of her dress, of his crimson eyes watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. This is getting complicated, she whispered. Yes, it is. He pulled her infinitesimally closer. But we have 2.5 months remaining. We can maintain the fiction that long. And if it stops being fiction? The question escaped before Luna could stop it. Draconis' eyes widened fractionally, and she saw her own confusion reflected in them. This was supposed to be simple, a temporary arrangement to benefit them both. But somewhere between the press conferences and formal dinners, the late-night conversations and shared silences, something had shifted. Before either of them could address it, a scream cut through the music. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Draconis pushed Luna behind him instantly, his body a shield as vampires scattered. Through the confusion, Luna saw the source of the scream, a young vampire woman collapse near the refreshment table, dark veins spreading across her pale skin. "Poison!" someone shouted. "The blood wine is poisoned!" Draconis cursed in a language Luna didn't recognize. "Stay behind me," he ordered, scanning the room with predatory focus. But Luna's nursing instincts overrode her sense of self-preservation. She ducked under Draconis' arm and ran to the fallen vampire, dropping to her knees beside her. The woman was seizing, foam flecking her lips, her eyes rolling back. "Someone get me a medical kit!" Luna barked with the authority of someone used to emergency situations. She turned the woman on her side, checking her airway, her pulse. "What poison? I need to know what we're dealing with." "Nightshade extract," a vampire physician said, kneeling beside her. "Lethal to our kind. There's no antidote." "There's always an antidote. Help me stabilize her." Luna's hands moved with practiced efficiency, years of trauma training taking over. "We need to flush her system, counteract the toxin." "Miss Davies, it's no use." "I said help me." The force in her voice made the vampire physician move, and together they worked on the dying woman. Luna was vaguely aware of Draconis shouting orders, of guards securing the ballroom, of the chaos swirling around them. But her focus narrowed to the patient in front of her, to the fight to keep death at bay. It took 20 minutes of intensive treatment, of forcing the vampire system to purge the poison, of maintaining her breathing and circulation through sheer determination. When the woman finally gasped, her eyes focusing, the dark veins beginning to recede, Luna nearly collapsed with relief. "She'll live," the vampire physician said with something like awe. "You saved her life." Luna sat back on her heels, her dress ruined, her hands stained, her carefully styled hair falling around her face. "That's what I do." Strong hands lifted her to her feet, and then Draconis was there, his eyes blazing with an emotion she couldn't name. "You could have been killed. The poisoner could still be in the room." "She was dying. I'm a nurse. I don't stop being a nurse just because I'm playing your fiancée." Luna met his gaze steadily. "You would have done the same thing." He stared at her for a long moment, and then, in front of every important vampire in the country, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her. This kiss was nothing like the chaste press conference performance. This was desperate, fierce, claiming. Draconis' hand tangled in her hair, his other arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her against him. Luna responded without thinking, her arms going around his neck, kissing him back with equal intensity. When they finally broke apart, the ballroom was silent. Every eye was on them, witnesses to something that had just stopped being pretend. "My lord," Isolde appeared at his elbow, her expression urgent. "We need to secure the area, question the guests. This was an assassination attempt." "See to it." Draconis didn't take his eyes off Luna. "I'm taking Luna home." The drive back to the mansion was tense and silent. Luna's mind was reeling, trying to process everything that had happened. The poison attack, the desperate fight to save the woman's life, that kiss that had felt nothing like acting. Once inside, Draconis led her to his private chambers room she'd never entered before. They were surprisingly simple compared to the rest of the mansion, decorated in dark woods and deep blues, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. "You should clean up," he said, gesturing to an attached bathroom. "I'll have fresh clothes brought." Luna looked down at herself, seeing the blood and stains for the first time. Right, of course. But she didn't move, and neither did he. They stood in the center of his bedroom, the air between them charged with unspoken tension. "Luna, don't," she held up a hand. "Don't tell me that kiss was for show or for the cameras or political strategy. There were no cameras in that ballroom." "No, there weren't." He moved closer, and Luna's breath hitched. "That kiss was because I watched you risk your life without hesitation to save someone you didn't know. Because you're brave and brilliant and completely maddening. Because somewhere in the last 2 weeks, this stopped being pretend for me." Luna's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. "We agreed. 3 months, then we walk away. Clean break." "I know what we agreed." Draconis reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with infinite gentleness. "But I'm 800 years old, Luna. I've learned that plans change. People change. And what I'm feeling for you isn't something I can simply turn off when our arrangement ends. You said you didn't believe in romance, in love. I didn't. Until you." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "You make me want to believe again." Luna knew she should step back, should maintain the professional distance that had kept them both safe. But she was tired of pretending, tired of denying the pull between them. "I'm scared," she admitted. "This world, your life, it's so far from anything I've known. And I'm mortal, Draconis. Even if we tried this for real, I'd age and die while you stay frozen in time." "Then we'd have whatever time we're given. Isn't that what you said? That the trying matters?" He cupped her face in both hands. "I know I'm asking for more than we agreed on. I know this is complicated and dangerous and possibly insane. But I need you to know that what I feel is real. You're real to me." Tears pricked Luna's eyes. She'd been falling for him, piece by piece, moment by moment, and she'd been so determined to deny it. But standing here in his private sanctuary with his ancient eyes looking at her like she was something precious, she couldn't lie anymore. "It's real for me, too," she whispered. "I didn't want it to be, but it is." This time when he kissed her, it was soft and sweet and full of promise. Luna melted into him, her hands sliding up his chest to link behind his neck. Time seemed to suspend, the world narrowing to just the two of them, just this perfect moment. When they finally pulled apart, Draconis rested his forehead against hers. "This changes things." "Everything," Luna agreed. "But we still have problems. Victor's threat, the poisoning attempt, the fact that your entire council will probably oppose a real relationship with a human. Let them oppose. I'm the king." His voice held that edge of steel she'd heard before. And I didn't survive 8 centuries by letting others dictate my choices. Stubborn vampire. Brave human. He smiled, and it transformed his face into something beautiful. Stay here tonight, not because of propriety or appearances, but because I want you close. I'll take the couch. Draconis, I'm not pushing for more than you're ready to give. I just want you near. His thumb brushed across her lips. Is that acceptable? Luna nodded, not trusting her voice. He left her to clean up, and she took a long shower, washing away the blood and chaos of the evening. When she emerged in the pajamas that had been left for her, she found Draconis had changed as well, his formal attire replaced by simple black pants and a white shirt. He looked younger somehow, less imposing, more touchable. They settled into his bed, massive and comfortable, maintaining a respectful distance. But as the minutes ticked by, Luna found herself shifting closer, drawn to his presence. When her head came to rest on his shoulder, his arm came around her automatically. Tell me something true, she said into the darkness, something you've never told anyone else. Draconis was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I'm tired. I've been king for so long, carried the weight of my people for centuries, and some days I'm just tired. When I saw you in that alley, so full of life and fire, it reminded me what it felt like to be young, to feel things simply, without the burden of politics and power. Luna's throat tightened. That's why you agreed to the fake engagement? Because I made you feel young? I agreed because you made me feel. Period. His fingers traced patterns on her shoulder. Your turn. Tell me something true. I'm terrified of being left behind. My last relationship ended because he said I cared more about my patients than him, that I was too devoted to my work. He made me feel like I had to choose between love and purpose, and when I couldn't, he chose for me. She took a shaky breath. And now I'm falling for someone who will outlive me by centuries, the ultimate form of being left behind. Oh, Luna, Draconis shifted, tilting her chin up to meet his eyes. If we do this, if we make this real, I will treasure every moment we have, every day, every hour, every second. And when the time comes that age claims you, I'll carry the memory of you for all my remaining years. You won't be forgotten. You could never be forgotten. The tears came then, and Luna didn't try to stop them. Draconis held her while she cried, his cool presence oddly comforting. When she finally calmed, exhaustion pulled at her, the events of the night catching up. Sleep, Draconis murmured. I'll keep watch. You need rest too. Vampires need less sleep than humans. I'll be fine. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Besides, I want to watch you. Is that strange? Maybe, but I don't mind. Luna's eyes were already drifting closed. Draconis, we're going to figure this out, right? All of it? We will, I promise. His voice was the last thing she heard before sleep claimed her. Luna woke to find sunlight streaming through windows that should have been lethal to vampires. She sat up in confusion, finding Draconis standing by the glass, bathed in morning light, looking completely unharmed. You're in the sun, she said stupidly. He turned, a slight smile playing at his lips. Another myth humans got wrong. Sunlight weakens us, makes us uncomfortable, and prolonged exposure can cause illness. But we don't burst into flames. The movies lied to me. Luna pushed her hair out of her face. What other myths are wrong? Most of them. Garlic is merely unpleasant, not lethal. Holy water is just water. We can cross running water, enter homes uninvited, and our reflections show in mirrors. He moved to sit on the edge of the bed. The main truths are the blood requirement, our extended lifespans, and our increased physical capabilities. Everything else is human imagination running wild. Good to know. Luna glanced at the clock, seeing it was already past 10. I slept late. You needed it. Last night was traumatic. Draconis' expression darkened. Isolde's been investigating. The poison was definitely meant for me. The woman who drank it was simply unfortunate enough to be near the contaminated wine. Ice flooded Luna's veins. Someone tried to kill you. Not the first time, won't be the last. Comes with being king. He took her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. But it does mean we need to be more careful. Victor is the obvious suspect, but we have no proof yet. What happens if we find proof? Then I deal with him according to vampire law, which is considerably harsher than human justice. His eyes glinted red for a moment. But let's not dwell on that now. I have something I want to show you. He led her through the mansion to a wing she hadn't explored yet. At the end of a long corridor, he opened a door to reveal a stunning greenhouse bathed in natural light. Plants bloomed everywhere, flowers in every color imaginable, herbs and vines, even small trees. The air was warm and sweet, utterly different from the Gothic elegance of the rest of the house. "This is beautiful," Luna breathed, moving among the plants. "I didn't know you were a gardener." "I'm not, really, but I've lived a long time and growing things. It reminds me that life continues, that beauty persists." He plucked a deep red rose, offering it to her. "I wanted you to see this, the real me, not just the king everyone else sees." Luna took the rose, touched by the gesture. "Thank you for trusting me with this." They spent the morning in the greenhouse, Draconis pointing out his favorite plants and telling stories about where he'd acquired them. Luna learned he'd traveled the entire world multiple times, had witnessed historical events she'd only read about, had loved and lost more than she could imagine. "It doesn't make you sad?" she asked, "remembering everything you've lost?" "Sometimes, but the joy of having experienced it outweighs the pain of losing it." He touched a white lily gently. "That's what immortality teaches you, that everything is temporary, even grief. Except you. You're permanent." "Am I?" "I can die, Luna. It's difficult, requires specific methods, but I'm not truly immortal, just very long-lived." He turned to her. "Which is why I've decided something." "What?" "If we're doing this, truly doing this, not pretending anymore, then we do it on equal footing. I won't ask you to become a vampire unless you want that for yourself. I won't pressure you to fit into my world if it's not what you choose. We'll find a middle ground." Luna's eyes widened. "But your council, the other vampires, they'll never accept a human queen." "Then they'll learn to, or they can find a new king." His expression was fierce, determined. "I meant what I said last night. You're not a weakness, Luna. You're strength I didn't know I needed, and I will not hide that or apologize for it." The conviction in his voice made Luna's chest tight. She stepped closer, rising on her toes to kiss him softly. "You're making this very hard to resist." "Good. I don't want you to resist." His arms came around her waist. "I want you to stay, not for 3 months, not for the cameras or the treaty, but because you want to be here, with me." "I do want that. But Draconis, we need to be realistic. Your enemies will use me against you. I'm a vulnerability whether we want to admit it or not. Then we make you less vulnerable. Self-defense training, bodyguards, complete transparency with my inner circle." He cupped her face. "I've been alone for a very long time, Luna. I'm not willing to walk away from this just because it's complicated." "Neither am I," she admitted. "But we need a real plan, not just romance and good intentions." "Agreed. Come." He led her back to his study where Isolde, Kieran, and Serafina were waiting. All 3 vampires rose when they entered, their expressions carefully neutral. "I've asked my most trusted advisors here because we need to be honest," Draconis said, his hand finding Luna's. "This engagement began as a convenient fiction, but it's become real. Luna and I are choosing to make this relationship genuine, which means she needs to be protected, as if she truly were my intended bride." Kieran's jaw tightened. "My lord, with respect." "I'm not asking for permission, Kieran. I'm informing you of my decision." Draconis's tone brooked no argument. "The question is whether you'll support me or oppose me." Isolde spoke first. "I'll admit I had reservations initially, but Miss Davies has proven herself clever, brave, and genuinely good for you. You've been more alive these past weeks than I've seen in decades, so yes, I support this." "As do I," Serafina added, "though I suggest intensive self-defense training. Luna needs to be able to protect herself in our world." All eyes turned to Kieran. The vampire lord looked between Draconis and Luna, clearly conflicted. Finally, he sighed. "I think this is dangerous and potentially catastrophic for vampire-human relations, but you're my king, and more importantly, my friend. If this is what you want, I'll stand with you." "Thank you." Draconis's grip on Luna's hand tightened. Now, we need to address the poisoning attempt. Victor is the obvious suspect, but we need proof. They spent the next hour strategizing, planning how to draw out the assassin while keeping Luna safe. It was decided that she'd begin training with Serafina immediately, learning to defend herself against vampire threats. Kieran would quietly investigate Victor's network, looking for connections to the poisoner. Isolde would manage the public narrative, ensuring their relationship appeared strong and unified. When the others finally left, Luna sank into a chair, overwhelmed. This is really happening. We're actually doing this. Having second thoughts? Draconis knelt beside her chair, his crimson eyes searching hers. Terrified thoughts, but not second thoughts. She ran her fingers through his white hair, marveling at its softness. I'm all in, Draconis, for however long we have. His smile was radiant. Then let's make the most of it. The next 6 weeks were a whirlwind. Luna trained with Serafina every day, learning vampire fighting techniques and how to defend against supernatural strength and speed. She was bruised and exhausted constantly, but she was also getting stronger, faster, more confident. In between training sessions, she and Draconis navigated their new reality. They attended treaty negotiations, which were finally nearing completion, and social functions, where their obvious affection for each other was now real rather than performed. Luna met more of Draconis' world, learning the complex hierarchies and ancient traditions that governed vampire society. At night, they'd retreat to his chambers, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Draconis shared stories from his long life, and Luna told him about her childhood, her dreams, her fears. They learned each other's bodies slowly, carefully, Draconis always conscious of his strength, Luna always amazed by his gentleness. It wasn't perfect. There were challenges, vampires who sneered at Luna's mortality, humans who accused her of betraying her own kind, endless security concerns. But they faced each obstacle together, their bond strengthening with every trial. Then, 2 weeks before the treaty was set to be signed, Kieran found the proof they needed. Victor's been working with a faction of rogue vampires who oppose any treaty with humans, Kieran reported grimly. They want to return to the old ways, vampires ruling from the shadows, humans as cattle. The poisoning was meant to kill you and derail the negotiations. Draconis' expression turned cold and dangerous. Do we have enough evidence to bring formal charges? More than enough. Bank records, intercepted communications, testimony from a conspirator who's willing to talk. Kieran laid out documents across the desk. But moving against Victor will mean civil conflict. He has supporters, other families who share his views. Then we end this decisively. No room for doubt, no opportunity for his faction to rally. Draconis stood, every inch the vampire king. Call a formal council. Tomorrow night, Victor will answer for his crimes in front of witnesses. Luna watched him transform from the gentle lover she knew into someone ancient and powerful and slightly terrifying. This was the king who'd ruled for centuries, who'd crushed rebellions and maintained order through sheer force of will. What will happen to him? She asked quietly. Vampire law is clear. Attempted regicide is punishable by death. Draconis' eyes met hers. Does that bother you? She considered it honestly. In her world, death sentences were controversial, debated endlessly. But this wasn't her world, and Victor had tried to kill Draconis, had endangered countless others with his poison. I think you have to do what keeps your people safe, both vampire and human. Even if it means I have to execute him myself? Luna stood, moving to take his hands. Even then, I know who you are, Draconis. I know you're capable of violence when necessary. That doesn't change how I feel about you. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I wanted to shield you from this part of my life, the darkness. I work in trauma. I see darkness every day. She pulled back to meet his eyes. We don't get to pick and choose which parts of each other we accept. It's all or nothing. All or nothing, he echoed. I choose all, Luna, every part of you. And I choose all of you. The formal council the next night was held in the castle's throne room, a massive chamber Luna had never seen before. Stone walls rose 3 stories high, hung with ancient banners and lit by hundreds of candles. Vampires filled the space, the most powerful and influential of their kind, all gathered to witness justice. Luna sat in a place of honor beside Draconis' throne, wearing a gown of deep purple that marked her as his chosen consort. She felt the weight of every vampire's gaze, knew many of them were hoping to see her fail, to prove humans didn't belong in their world. Victor was brought in chained silver, Luna noted, which seemed to cause him actual pain. His silver-white hair was disheveled, his elegant clothes torn, but his eyes still burned with defiance. "Lord Victor Mordecai," Draconis' voice rang out, formal and cold. "You stand accused of attempted regicide, conspiracy against the crown, and treason. How do you answer these charges?" "I answer that you've grown weak, Draconis." Victor's voice was venomous. "Centuries ago, you would have crushed the humans beneath your heel. Now you negotiate with them, treaty with them, bed them. You've forgotten what it means to be vampire." "I've evolved. You've stagnated." Draconis gestured to Kieran, who presented the evidence documents, recordings, testimonies. The case was airtight, undeniable. As the proof mounted, Victor's supporters in the crowd grew quieter, their objections dying. Even his staunchest allies couldn't defend him against such clear guilt. "The penalty for your crimes is death," Draconis said when all evidence had been presented. "Do you have any final words?" Victor's gaze fixed on Luna, and she forced herself not to flinch. "She'll be your downfall, Draconis. That human will destroy you more thoroughly than I ever could. Love is weakness, and weakness is death in our world." "Love is strength," Draconis countered, "something you never understood." He rose from his throne, and Luna watched as he approached Victor with a sword she hadn't noticed before, ancient, beautiful, deadly. She knew what was coming, knew she should look away, but she kept her eyes on Draconis, wanting him to know she didn't condemn him for this. The execution was swift, clean, final. Victor's body turned to ash almost immediately, the vampire way of death. His supporters in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, but none moved to challenge Draconis. "Let this be a lesson," Draconis said, his voice carrying to every corner of the throne room. "I am your king, and I will protect our people with every tool at my disposal, including unity with humans. The treaty will be signed. The old ways are dying. Adapt or perish." The crowd dispersed slowly, vampires filing out in silence. Luna remained seated, processing what she'd witnessed. When the room was finally empty except for Draconis' inner circle, she stood and went to him. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I should be asking you that. What you saw tonight. Was you protecting your people? I understand." She took his hand, the one that had wielded the sword. "I'm not fragile, Draconis. I won't break because this world has sharp edges." Isolde approached, her expression grave. "My lord, there's already chatter among Victor's former allies. Some are calling for you to abdicate, claiming you're unfit to rule. Let them call for what they want. I'm not going anywhere." Draconis' jaw set stubbornly. "Anything else?" "The human delegation has requested a private meeting. They want assurances that tonight's events won't impact the treaty signing. Schedule it for tomorrow. We'll give them whatever assurances they need." He turned to Luna. "I need some air. Walk with me?" They left through a private exit, emerging onto the castle grounds. The night was clear and cold, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. Draconis led Luna to a garden overlooking the city, the lights below creating their own constellation. "I keep thinking about what Victor said," Luna admitted. "About me being your downfall." "He was wrong." "Was he?" "Your people are divided because of me. You just had to execute one of the oldest vampires in your kingdom. The human delegation is nervous. Maybe everyone would be better off if—" Draconis spun her to face him, his eyes blazing. "Don't. Don't even think about walking away to make things easier. Victor was a problem long before you came into my life. The divisions in vampire society existed centuries before you were born. You didn't create these conflicts, Luna. You're just caught in the crossfire. But I'm making it worse. You're making me better, stronger, more certain of what I'm fighting for." His hands framed her face. "Victor was right about one thing. I have changed. Because of you, I remember why I wanted to be king in the first place. Not for power or control, but to build something better. A world where vampires and humans can coexist, can maybe even love each other without it being a scandal." Tears pricked Luna's eyes. "I love you. I should have said it before, but I was scared. Now I just want you to know I love you, Draconis." His smile was brilliant, transforming his austere features into something beautiful. I love you too, Luna Davies, more than I thought possible after so many years alone. He kissed her then, deep and sweet and full of promise. Luna melted into him, letting herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. That love really could bridge the impossible gap between mortal and immortal. When they finally pulled apart, Draconis reached into his pocket, pulling out a small box. I know you're already wearing my mother's ring, but that was for show, for the performance. This is real. He opened the box to reveal a new ring, simpler than the first, but no less beautiful. A single diamond set in platinum, catching the starlight. Luna Davies, will you truly be my bride? Not for cameras or politics or convenience, but because you want to spend whatever time we have together? Luna's breath caught. Are you really proposing? I am. I know we started this as a lie, but I want to make it truth. His eyes held hers, vulnerable and hopeful. I want you as my partner, my equal, my love. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Yes. The word came out choked with emotion. Yes, of course, yes. Draconis slipped the new ring on her finger beside the first, and Luna thought she'd never seen anything more perfect. 2 rings, one for show, one for real. A visual representation of their journey from fiction to truth. When? She asked. Whenever you want. Tomorrow, next year, a decade from now. I'm immortal, remember? I can wait. Luna laughed, giddy with happiness. Let's not wait too long. Maybe after the treaty is signed, a private ceremony, just us and the people who matter. Perfect. He pulled her close again. Though I should warn you, vampire weddings are elaborate affairs. There are customs, rituals. I don't care. As long as I'm marrying you, the rest is just details. They stayed in the garden until dawn started to lighten the sky. Draconis finally led her back inside, both of them exhausted but happy. As they curled up together in his bed, Luna felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This was where she belonged, not in her old life, not in her comfortable routine, but here, with him, building something new together. The treaty was signed 2 weeks later in a ceremony broadcast around the world. Luna stood beside Draconis as he and the human representatives put their names to the historic document, officially recognizing vampire rights and establishing frameworks for peaceful coexistence. The media went wild, of course, but Luna had gotten used to the cameras, the questions, the constant scrutiny. She and Draconis gave a brief statement affirming their engagement, the real one now, and their hope that their relationship could serve as an example of vampire-human unity. The wedding was planned for a month later, and despite Luna's desire for something small, it had grown into a significant event. Too many important figures wanted to attend. Too much political significance hung on the union. So they compromised a large formal ceremony for the public, followed by a private vow exchange just for them. The month flew by in a blur of wedding preparations, continued self-defense training, and navigating their new reality as an openly committed couple. Luna had officially moved into Draconis' chambers, her apartment sold and her belongings integrated into his space. She'd also started working part-time at the hospital again, refusing to give up her nursing completely. It's who I am, she'd told Draconis when he'd expressed concern about her safety. I can't stop being a healer just because I'm marrying you. He'd agreed, though he'd insisted on bodyguards and strict security protocols. Luna had rolled her eyes but accepted the compromise. This was her life now, constant negotiation between her independence and his protectiveness. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. Luna woke early in guest chambers. Tradition dictated they spend the night before apart and was immediately swarmed by attendants. Marie helped her into the wedding gown, a creation of ivory silk and delicate lace that had taken a team of designers months to create. Looking at herself in the mirror, Luna barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked like a queen, regal and elegant and otherworldly. But underneath the finery, she was still just Luna Davies, a nurse from the city who'd stumbled into a vampire king's life and somehow found love. You look beautiful, miss, Marie said, tears in her eyes. Lord Draconis is a lucky man. I'm the lucky one, Luna replied. I got to fall in love with someone extraordinary. The ceremony was held in the castle's grand ballroom, transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Thousands of white roses filled every surface, candles created pools of soft light, and both vampires and humans filled the seats, a visual representation of the unity they were celebrating. Luna walked down the aisle alone, having lost her parents years ago to a car accident. But she didn't feel alone. Isolde, Serafina, and Kieran all stood as her honor attendants, these vampires who'd become her unlikely friends. And at the end of the aisle stood Draconis, looking devastating in formal black, his crimson eyes locked on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. The ceremony itself was a blend of vampire and human traditions. They spoke ancient vows in a language Luna had learned phonetically, and modern promises in words that came from her heart. When it came time to exchange rings, Draconis surprised her with a matching band for himself, something vampire grooms traditionally didn't wear. "I want everyone to know I'm yours," he murmured as she slipped it on his finger, "just as you're mine." The officiant pronounced them married, and Draconis kissed her to thunderous applause. Flash photography exploded, capturing the moment for posterity. But Luna was only aware of her husband, and the love shining in his ancient eyes. The reception was extravagant, with speeches and toasts and more food than seemed possible. Luna danced with Draconis, with Kieran, with Serafina, with human dignitaries and vampire lords. Her feet ached and her face hurt from smiling, but she'd never been happier. Finally, as midnight approached, Draconis whispered in her ear, "Ready to escape? Please." They slipped away during a particularly energetic dance number, running through the castle's corridors hand in hand like teenagers. Draconis led her to a private wing she'd never seen before, opening a door to reveal a suite that took her breath away. "Our wedding night chambers," he explained. "Private, secure, and completely ours for the next week. I've instructed everyone that we're not to be disturbed unless the world is literally ending." Luna laughed, pulling him inside. "A whole week? Won't your council have a fit?" "The council can manage without me. Tonight, tomorrow, this week, it's all about us." He pulled her close, fingers working on the intricate buttons of her wedding gown. "I've been dying to get you out of this dress all day." "Have you?" Luna reached up to loosen his tie. "Good thing we have a week to make up for lost time." They undressed each other slowly, savoring each revealed inch of skin. When they finally came together, it was with the certainty of two people who'd chosen each other against all odds, who'd made their pretend relationship real through sheer determination and love. Later, Luna lay in Draconis' arms, her head on his chest, listening to his slow heartbeat. The wedding rings on their hands caught the candlelight, twin symbols of promises made and kept. "Are you happy?" Draconis asked softly, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Luna replied honestly. "Even with all the complications and danger and politics, I wouldn't change any of it, because it led me to you. I feel the same." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Thank you, Luna, for seeing past the king to the man, for taking a chance on me. Thank you for forgetting our engagement was supposed to be fake." She tilted her head up to look at him. "Best accident of my life." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile she'd fallen in love with. "Mine too." They stayed in their private sanctuary for the promised week, emerging only when duty absolutely demanded it. The world had changed in their absence. The treaty was being implemented smoothly. Vampire-human relations were improving daily, and their marriage had become a symbol of hope for both species. Luna settled into her new role as vampire queen with surprising ease. She balanced her time between royal duties and her work at the hospital, refusing to give up either part of her identity. Draconis supported her completely, even attending some of her shifts to better understand the work she loved. Challenges still arose, of course. There were vampires who opposed the treaty, humans who feared vampire influence, and constant security concerns. But Luna and Draconis faced each obstacle together, their love growing stronger with every trial. On their 6-month anniversary, Draconis took Luna back to the alley where they'd first met. It looked different in daylight, less dangerous, more ordinary. But Luna could still remember the moment she'd grabbed his hand, the impulse that had changed everything. "I've been thinking," Draconis said, pulling her into his arms, "about the future, about what comes after." Luna's stomach tightened. They'd carefully avoided discussing her mortality, the inevitable end that would come far too soon in vampire terms. Draconis, I'm not asking you to become a vampire. That has to be your choice, made freely without pressure from me. His crimson eyes were serious. But I want you to know the option exists, if you ever decide you want it. And if I don't, if I choose to stay human and age normally, then I'll love you for however many years we have, and I'll carry your memory for all the years after. His hand cupped her cheek. There's no wrong choice, Luna. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Tears pricked her eyes. I don't know what I want yet. The thought of living centuries is overwhelming. But the thought of leaving you, you don't have to decide today or tomorrow or even next year. He kissed her softly. We have time. Not as much as I'd like, but enough to figure it out together. Luna leaned into him, grateful for his patience, his understanding. They stood in that alley for a long time, two unlikely lovers who'd found each other against impossible odds. I love you, she whispered, and I love you. Fake engagement and all. Luna laughed, swatting his chest. It stopped being fake a long time ago. Best decision I ever made, Draconis agreed. Letting myself forget it was supposed to be pretend. Years later, Luna would look back on this moment as the turning point when she stopped seeing their different lifespans as a problem and started seeing them as an opportunity. Whether she chose transformation or mortality, they had something precious, real, honest, transformative love, the kind of love worth any price, the kind of love that turned convenient fictions into beautiful truths. And as they walked home hand in hand, Luna knew that whatever the future held, they'd face it together. Because that's what partners did. That's what love meant. Not forever necessarily, but for all the moments that mattered. And every moment with Draconis mattered more than she'd ever imagined possible.